The wait is over. After 5 long years, the Deftones are back with their 10th studio album, Private Music. The only question left is this album pitch perfect or off key? Find out next. Welcome, metal enthusiasts, to another episode of The Metal Dude Abides. Tonight, we are going to be reviewing the brand new, long-anticipated album from Deftones entitled Private Music. Now, pardon me for a second, because this weekend I'm also doing my big fantasy football draft. So if I mix up my sports terminologies and my music terminologies, you'll have to be a little bit patient with me. But to describe the Deftones, I would say they have what we would call in football a high floor, meaning the Deftones are consistently good, album after album. And what makes that even more remarkable is they are not musically consistent in that they are constantly experimenting with new styles. And the one album doesn't necessarily sound anything like the previous album. A lot of bands achieve consistency by sounding the same every album. Many people would say that about AC/DC, for instance, whereas their albums kind of sound the same over and over again. But to achieve this kind of consistency with the wide variety of styles that the Deftones play is truly amazing. Now, that doesn't mean there's not some cause for alarm. There's not cause for worry. After all, the Deftones have now been out for well over 2 decades. And we all know that even the best bands, at one point or another, kind of run out of inspiration, kind of run out of fuel, and hit that cliff. Also, again, this is the first album we've heard from them in over 5 years. A lot of times I've noticed if a band takes a long break, sometimes it's a sign, a red flag, if you will, that they're struggling with the new material. Or the other thing that happens is the band changes, and and sometimes after a long break, they never really return the same. So with all those red flags aside, let me just say, be assured, Deftone fans, this album absolutely cooks. I've been waiting for this album. They put out a couple singles just a few weeks ago. I think it was 6 weeks ago. And right off the bat, I was like, oh, these new singles have got me excited for this new album. And let me just say, it delivers. If you're familiar with my channel, what we do is when we do these album reviews is we go track by track and let you know all the highlights and lowlights. Let's get started. The very first track is a song called My Mind is a Mountain. This was also the very first single they released when they announced the brand new album. And at the time, I described it as a bit of an appetizer. A really short song, not even 3 minutes long, that kind of just whetted your appetite for what is about to happen. Now, the thing I really like about this as an opening track is it has an intense, marching-like cadence. And you really can't have that kind of a cadence without fantastic drumming in the background. Abe's drumming on this song and across this album are sensational. This is one of those songs that is a great opener that sets the tone for the whole album and lets you know you better buckle up. You're in for a wild ride. The second song on the album is called Locked Club. Now, for those of you who have been listening to the Deftones since the very beginning, you'll know their first few albums. They were inspired by and paid homage to a lot of the nu metal bands of the day. They were, in fact, considered themselves nu metal for a bit. Well, this song has a little bit of that nu metal feel, but with a much more modern take. The verses are done in spoken word vibe, and they don't really bring in the melody and the singing until the choruses kick in. But boy, do they have the gigantic, hypnotic, distorted riffs throughout this thing. And they do a really cool thing in the production where they put like an echoey effect in here that really gives the song a big, spacious feeling. Uh, First time through this album, I didn't really quite catch on to this one, but by the second time I listened to this album, it became one of my favorites. The third song on the album, I may be mispronouncing, but I'm going to go with Egdysis. This so far is my favorite track on the entire album. It starts out with this little synth intro that just doesn't really give you any indication how hard this song is going to kick you in the ass. But then that bass riff, that nasty bass riff kicks in. Whew, the riff kicks in. This song absolutely is one of my favorite. This is what I love about the Deftones. They can put together such a heavy groove in a song, and this does it right here. I like the first two songs on the album, but I think the album really takes off into a new level right here. And oh, by the way, Chino's vocals on this are outstanding. If you are going to take a look at some of these songs, I recommend starting right here with Egdysis. As I was saying in the intro, the Deftones really change it up from album to album and song to song, and here the album takes a much softer turn. This is a lot less heavy than the opening tracks, but it also really kicks in with a fantastic melodic hook. I love this song. I adore this song. And once again, Chino's vocals on this are absolutely on point. Which leads me to the question, why is this man never considered one of the top vocalists in heavy metal? I see a lot of lists espousing the values of a lot of different vocalists, and this guy rarely gets the credit. Why is that? That should be taken care of. That is a crime. Chino has been a consistent voice of metal for now well over 20 years, and he's still absolutely killing it. Now, I do have to say, this song kind of scares me a little bit. There's kind of a farewell kind of vibe going on here. Is there something that they need to tell us here? I need someone to analyze these lyrics and assure me that this isn't it for them. Those kind of details are needed because there is a lot of, the last time we take the stage, and there's a lot of that going on in this song. So, and finally, yes, this is a very melodic song. Yes, it's much softer than the previous songs, but then that closing riff, is it spicy. Definitely check out this song, and to someone assure me that this isn't a farewell song. The next song is a song called Souvenir. And this song kind of tricks you a little bit because it starts off very slow. And Chino starts in with those like dreamy, whispery vocals. But then by the time it gets to the chorus, it just explodes with heaviness. Steven has a guitar riff on here like he's starting a chainsaw. So heavy. I was thinking about this a lot. There are so many great riffs on this album. We're only 4 songs in, and every song has just a massive riff to it. I will admit that I am a child of the 80s. I love blazing fast guitar solos. But when you get a crunchy riff like this, just gets your head a-banging. Now, the funny thing about this is I think a lot of bands put a heavy song together and then come in with a very light melodic chorus. This is the exact opposite, in which the lightness and the melody comes in, and then the chorus is the heavy point. I really dig that style. Now, I love this album. I've loved every song, but now it is time for me to be a bit nitpicky. At about the 4.5 minute mark, this song just comes to a full stop, complete, nothing. Sounds like the song's over. And then kind of has this 1.5 minute interlude that sounds kind of like a distorted pipe organ, is the best way I can describe it. Now, this adds a little bit of atmosphere to the song, sure, but it seems a little unnecessary. I want to go on to the next song. I want to go on to the next crunchy riff. So my ADD kicks in here. Don't really like that part of the song, but the first 4.5 minutes are excellent. The next song is called CXZ. One of my favorite Deftones tropes is, while I appreciate all the crunchy riffs and I appreciate all of the great drums, sometimes they do this effect that I don't know how to describe it other than they kind of get this chaotic, hurricane-like swirling action going, where it just seems like you're surrounded by the music. One of my favorite all-time Deftones songs is The Tempest. They really do it beautifully there. And then it's like Chino is in the eye of the storm, and he's got to use his vocals to pierce through all that chaos. They do that really well here as well. It's not as crisp. Again, it's kind of a controlled chaos, an intentional chaos that kind of makes it feel different from the others. But again, once again, Steven has fantastic riffs, and this song has really cool atmosphere. I think about you all the time. We've finally hit the ballad on the album, but let me just assure you, this is, just like every other song, excellently done. Some really cool keyboards here by Frank. He really brings his A game on this album as well. At one point, he has an effect in here where it sounds like a swarm of bees is like flying through wind chimes. It's really cool. I don't know how else to describe it. Again, every member of the band in this album seems to be just at the top of their game. Really dig this song. And yes, it's a ballad. Yes, it is a love song. But you know, the thing about these ballads is you start off with a ballad, but you end up really heavy. This ballad's got teeth, nasty riffs, and by the end of it, is one of the heaviest songs on the entire album. The Deftones don't stay mellow for long. Milk of the Madonna comes next. Now, I have to say, this was the second single that they released before the album. And this is when I really started to get excited about this album. Because this song has the most filthy, infectious riff you're ever going to hear. Steven knocks it out of the park on this one. I will say that at the end of the year, when you start putting together the best songs of the year, this bad boy is definitely going into that mix. If I were to introduce someone to the Deftones, like someone who's never heard them before, and they say, okay, give me a song to start with, I start them right here. If you don't like this bad boy, I don't know what to tell you. It is one of my favorite tracks on the entire album, and probably one of my favorite songs in the entire year from any band. The next song on the album is called Cut Hands, and once again, the Deftones return to that kind of nu metal inspired music. Now, I like this song a little bit better than the previous song, Locked Club, in that this has a little bit more intensity, a whole lot more attitude. Really dig this song. I want to mention that the Deftones also, this is going to be like a broken record. Every member of the band sounds fantastic on this song. Guitars, drums, vocals, keyboards. They went back to one of their older producers, a producer that had done some music for them way back, kind of when I started listening to him, so maybe that's why I like this sound so much. But he really brings out the band in this album in such a spectacular way. Like, I'm going to have to go back and listen to the catalog again. I can't remember a time when the band sounded this good, this tight. Anyway, I think this is one of the best deep tracks on the album. Go check it out. You're going to really bang your head to this one. As we head towards the back end of this album, we run into a song, Metal Dream, and you're asking yourself, are they starting to run out of steam? Not by a long shot. Another great song. And in particular, once again, I can't stop gushing about Abe's drumming on this album. And right here at the close of the album, there's a couple of songs here that he really grabs my attention and won't let go. This is also one of those, I guess you could say, one of the other labels this band gets attached to sometime is, shoegazy. I gotta be honest with you, sometimes I don't even really understand what defines shoegazy, but this does have that kind of floating, dizzying kind of atmosphere to it that you see on a lot of the Deftones songs. Really dig this song. Band is still going strong deep into the album. Let's see how they do on the closer. The final track is called Departing the Body. And one of the things that's really striking about this album is that there is so many songs on here that are under 4 minutes. Here we get kind of more of an epic feeling, close to 6-minute track here. And I gotta say that this song just feels important. Chino starts out with a little baritone action there to get us started. I think this is one of my favorite tracks on the entire album. What a closer. The intro is perfect. The big epic ending, everything in between. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a perfect album from start to finish. I can't believe how much I've enjoyed this. But let's hit the conclusion next. Now, those of you who know me are aware I am not a patient man. And having to wait 5 years for a new Deftones album really tested the boundaries of my patience. But I can say, full-throated, this was worth the wait. This was an unbelievably good album. Any concerns you had that they were running out of steam or they were struggling to come up with new material has all been put to bed. This album is probably one of their best albums ever. And that's high praise indeed. Because again, the Deftones only put out great albums. This really scratched the itch. Really excited. Really enjoyed this album from start to finish. Let's just start with a few highlights. The production of this album. I'm glad they went back to this producer. I heard a comment somewhere that they said that this guy really knows how to bring out the Deftones sound. Amen. This sounds fantastic, crisp. The riffs are big. The drumming's big. Everything is great. Chino's vocals are spectacular as always. Dude's been going at this well over 20 years. Never sounded better. Again, Stevens, just the number of riffs on this album are too many to count. And yet, the funny thing about riffs, you think they're simple, but yet every one of them is very difficult and very diverse. Really love it. Abe's drumming, great. Really like a few of the songs at the beginning of the album where he really stands out. Really like his drumming on a few of the final tracks, but he's good throughout the whole album. And Frank adds a lot to this album around atmosphere. His keyboards are very nicely put into the songs. They don't overtake the songs. They just kind of come up and give it a little bit of oomph to it. Again, I think that this has inspired me to really start thinking, where does this fit in the entire discography? So I think I'm going to put together, finally, a full ranking of the Deftones discography. I'm going to wait about a month so the recency bias kind of goes away, but I think that it's long overdue to rank those 10 big studio albums from the Deftones. Also, as we're starting to think about, December's not that far away, this is definitely going to be a candidate for Album of the Year. It is that good. I was just reflecting on the fact that it has been incredibly hot in Denver. We were like 98 degrees just the other day, and it's kind of hard to feel. I feel like I'm a little wilted. I'm a little tired. I'm a little sapped from this hot summer. This perked me right up. Just as this album comes out, we got a little bit of a cool wave. I'm just coursing with energy right now. Great job, Deftones. welcome back. They're also doing a tour. I was just pondering the fact that they are coming to Denver. They're coming to the Pepsi Center. Now, the Pepsi Center is our big basketball hockey arena here in town, and I hate the Pepsi Center. But this album's so good, I just might have to go out and check them out live. Also, give me a subscribe. Give me a like. If you are on board with me that this is one of the best Deftones albums ever, and you'd like to see me do full discography rankings, give me a thumbs up. Give me a like. Hit the alert button. We do these videos every Tuesday night, and you don't want to miss it because, again, it's not going to be next week. It's not going to be the week after. It's going to be a month or so, but you want to be alerted when we put out that new discography ranking for Deftones. So subscribe to the channel and get the alerts. In the meantime, this is the Metal Dude signing off. Take care.